So tonight 我们要 go over 的是 Deuteronomy 14:22 to 29. Deuteronomy 14:22 to 29. 生命记14章22到29节. And the first icebreaker question that we have is financial giving easy or hard? Why? And if it's hard or it's easy, what makes it easy? What makes it hard? Or maybe I should ask, what makes financial giving easier or what makes it harder? 这是 the icebreaker question tonight. 因为今天的问题，今天 is about tithing. If you read the Bible, it's about tithing. So that's 那我们就 dive in. 那我们就看 Deuteronomy 14, 生命记14章22到29节. Since we only have 3 people tonight, we're gonna do 一个人3节。3 verses，那就 start with number 1，然后就一人3节 start with verse 22 and you can read in any language that you prefer.
Okay, let me get my Bible on my phone as well. The giving of tithes. verse 22, you must set aside a tithe of your crops, 1/10 of all the crops you harvest each year. Bring this tithe to the designated place of worship, the place the Lord your God chooses for his name to be honored, and eat it there in his presence. This applies to your tithes of grain, new wine, olive oil, and the firstborn males of your flocks and herds. Doing this will teach you always to fear the Lord your God.
3 verses.
Oh, one more. Okay. Now, when the Lord your God blesses you with a good harvest, the place of worship he chooses for his name to be honored might be too far for you to bring the tithe.
你就可以换成银子，将银子包起来，拿在手中，往耶和华你神所要选择的地方去。你用这银子随心所欲，或买牛羊，或买淡酒、浓酒，凡你心所想的都可以买。你和你的家属可以在那里，在耶和华你神的面前吃喝快乐。你不可摒弃在你城里的利未人，因为他在你们那里无分无业。
Okay, verse 28. At the end of every 3 years, you shall bring out the tithe of your produce in the same year, and lay it up within your towns. Verse 29. And the Levites, because he has no portion or inheritance with you, and the sojourners, the fatherless, the widow, who are within your town, shall come and eat and be filled, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the works of your hand that you do. Okay, so we start from 所以我们从 beginning 开始 ，OK？ 所以我们看到说 verse 14，它上面verse 22 chapter 14 verse 22，它上面写什么？它上面写说you shall tithe 这一句话 you shall tithe 献上1/10，在中文我的版本里面是最后一句话 ，but you shall tithe 是它的这个 verse 的第一句话 in Hebrew the original text， 那它是一个 emphatic command。它是一个不只是一个 command， 它是一个加强的。它的 Hebrew construction grammar 是有惊叹号的那种概念，就是 it's like you shall tithe, that's important. So that's how it opens up. 那然后他就说 OK 你小tithe是 set aside 1/10 of your harvest， 那之后会解释 the details of it。然后它基本上如果 if you read it from literal text like 如果 word for word 的翻译的话，那 this is how it will go. You must tithe the 10th of the agricultural produce. 那个 seed 在希伯来文的 seed means agricultural， 所以是 seed 就是 agricultural， 所以是 agricultural produce which the land will provide. That's 因为他说，因为英文是说 you shall tithe all the yield of your seed that comes from the field。那其实意思就是说，所有的地给你的农物都要给1/10。那这个就是23节就讲到说，这是 grain, new wine, fresh oil， 因为那是那个年代他们所产的大部分的东西，就是那些东西，就是他们的盛产物。那在 Near Ancient Eastern Culture， 就是这个他们当代文化 ，whether 信亚威 or not， 在那个年代的文化里面 ，taxation 就是税务跟 tithing 十一奉献其实是 very similar， 几乎没有什么 difference。 It's almost the same. The reason being，以前的人相信说有 kings，那些 kings 是 divinely appointed。那这 Israelites they did not have king, they don't have Moses, but Moses is divinely appointed. So 当你相信说你的政府、你的领袖，whether king or not，他是神所赐的，那 your taxation and tithe they are similar. They're very. It's not much different if you think about it, right? 就是假装我随便说，王牧师是我们 senior pastor，然后 pretend 我们的 city of Irvine 他也是the mayor，然后我们都相信王牧师是神所拣选。Then giving money to the church or giving money to tax as city is very blurred the line. So that's why it's similar 在那个 culture 里面。And in addition，以前他们捐不是捐钱嘛？Remember 他们是捐 agricultural produce，so they need a storage center，来他们需要一个粮仓。那他们的粮仓在以前那个年代跟 religious worship center is the same place。And 我们的 context 里面，在 Jewish context 里面，他们去 burn offering 的地方是在哪里？是在敬拜神的地方，就是在他的圣殿里面。所以 for that reason。Taxation and tithing, they're similar. Like, I don't see much difference. And moreover, 当现在在这个状态里，以色列他们是游牧民族嘛，他们要准备进迦南地。但是 once 他们成为一个国家的时候 ，like David 的 kingdom 的时候，或是 Saul 的 kingdom 的时候，他们是一个 complete kingdom，不是一个游牧民族的时候，他们会把这些钱拿去 not just for temple service。他们还会把这些钱拿去 distribute among the officials to maintain the government running. 所以 it's what we do with tax as well. Except 我们不会拿我们的 tax 去 maintain temples. That's not what we do. 因为我们是政教分开来的。But back then it's one, two and one. 所以 taxation and tithing they're similar. You can even call it the same in some ways. Yeah. 那当然，它跟我们 taxation 现在 idea 有不大一样，因为我们这种 taxation 太复杂，还有什么 tax deductible 啊，然后还会什么坐牢啊 if you don't tithe and stuff. Back then it's not like that, but the concept was similar. 那 verse 23它是这样说 ：Before the Lord your God in the place that He will choose to make His name dwell there. 其实 if you notice，它三个 phrase 在讲同一个意思，是不是 ？Before the Lord your God。那在 Hebrew 里面 before someone 的意思就是 presence in the presence of someone，就是例如说我今天跟 Chloe 吃饭，那在 Hebrew 里面我会说 I'm eating before Chloe. It means that 我今天跟她 physically present. That's what it means，就是 in the face of someone basically。所以第一句话 before the Lord your God，那不就是意思就是说 in the presence of God， in the place that He will choose， 那也是。In the presence of God 嘛 that's a similar meaning. To make His name dwell there， 他都 dwell there, that means His presence. 所以三句话都在讲同一个 concept， 只是 reinforced in different ways, right? 那中文也是这样，在耶和华你的神面前吃，就是他选择做他民居所的地方。居所的地方跟在他神面前吃不是一个意思吗？就是同在的意思嘛。所以他用三个 phrase 在 explain 说 the presence of God。你要 eat the tithe of grain, right? That's essentially what it means. 所以虽然 even though verse 22 begin with the command, you must tithe. Okay, that's a command. 可是 if you read verse 23, 你会发现到 it's actually not just you must tithe, but it's invitation to celebration. Right? 他是说什么？在强调在神的同在地方 three times。你要 feast， 然后这个 feast 还蛮丰富的，有 oil， 有 wine， 有 meat。And 以前那个年代吃 meat is not easy， 所以有 meat is like fancy feast。所以呢 ，instead of giving 一个 geographic location，instead of saying 晚上8点你要来某某 street 见面，or 晚上8点你要去 Jerusalem 见面 ，instead of saying that，it emphasized the presence of the Lord。And why does it emphasize that? Because it's telling us that Yahweh, 耶和华是 the divine host of the banquet. 因为重点不是你在哪里吃，重点是 who is hosting the banquet. And this is Yahweh, the Lord your God, hosting a banquet, inviting you in for the meal. So this is the reason why 他没有 specify location because location right now it's not the point. The point is you're invited. 那其实这有一个可以追溯回 Exodus 24 when Moses 拿到了我不知道你有没有读过那个拿到了 Ten Commandments. And I don't know if you remember what he did. If you need to, 你可以 go back to Exodus 24. But what they did is 他把一只牛砍了。哎，以前你知道我们现在 sign contract 不是说我上一个 party，你上一个 party，然后我们把这个 form 可能是可以那个复写过去，所以我们就一人一半，or make a copy，然后 both of us. But back then, how they make a covenant is that 他们会把一个动物切一半，okay? It signifies that if any of us don't keep the contract, then let us be divided in half. That's pretty bad. 然后呢 what they did was 他们会把那个血洒在对方，就是我们互相洒对方身上。It's like a form of signature. 你知道把一个牛切一半，然后我们互相把血洒在对方身上。And Exodus 24的时候你可以回去读，他们是把一只 oxen make a peace offering to the Lord. 然后呢，摩西再把这个血洒在人民身上。It means that the Israelites signed the covenant with God. And after the signing of the covenant, quote unquote, the Lord invited them onto the mountain, invited the Israelite the elders, 就是 signify it's the elders represent Israel as a nation. 然后呢，就去山上跟上帝一起 feast. But during that time, only the elders were invited. But this time, Moses is saying, everyone, as long as you are the people of God, you are invited to this feast. 所以这它的 reference 是 Exodus 24, okay? So that's where it came from. 那我要 clarify 哦，他说什么你要给 1/10，然后他说你有这个 feast，不是说你 1/10 都拿来做这个 feast 哦， that's not what it means. It just means that part of 1/10 can go toward the feast. But 如果 the 1/10 都 go toward the feast 的话 it defeats the purpose of 1/10. 而且 just imagine 一年的 1/10 it's a lot. 然后要全部拿来 feast, that's very unrealistic, okay? Yeah, 所以 basically 他还是要把 1/10 放在上帝的 storehouse for redistribution. 那 the first question I have for you guys to think about is what does it mean to eat the feast before the Lord your God? 什么叫做在耶和华你的神面前吃宴席? Like it's hard to imagine. Think about it. It took me a while to think about it. And how is Moses' command to offer the food to the and different from Buddhists or 道教要 offer the food at the altar? Because 他们在 offer food. But how is Moses' command different from 道教或台湾民间传统信仰说你 offer the food 什么杀一只鸡杀一只猪然后放在那个给祖先拜 What is the difference? Okay, 我先 first answer the question. 就是 what does it mean to feast before Lord your God? Well, I think it's important. 因为我们只要读 Old Testament, 你只要读摩西五经 Torah, 你就会很容易觉得 God has so many restrictions. He has so many commands for you to follow instructions. But here you actually can find that he loves to celebrate with his people, or else he wouldn't have feast. And if you think about it, it extended from Exodus. Exodus 是圣经中很早的那个书，你知道吗？ It's very beginning basically. I mean, it's not Genesis, but Exodus is pretty early on. When 他 start have the concept of nation, start have the concept of 一群人属于神的百姓。因为 Genesis 的话都是一个人，例如说亚伯拉罕 Abraham, Jacob 就是一个选的人。But starting from Exodus, that's when the concept of people of God as a community start to emerge. And when that concept emerged, God invited them to a feast to celebrate. He didn't invite them to feast, so let me lecture over you and let me tell you what it means to be a Christian, what it means to love God. None of that. It was pure celebration with him, pure enjoyment. It wasn't like 哦，你吃饭哦，我在上面演讲哦，很像那种台湾办那种选举都要这样，你在上面吃饭，然后在上面演讲。None of that. It just he likes to celebrate, and I think it's important to remember that our God likes us to celebrate. In fact, he is the host. who invites us to celebrate with him, and there's no ulterior motive. There is no ulterior motive, like there's a propaganda, you have to listen, or a rule, you have to follow, none of that. And then it shows that he loves to commune with his people. In fact, if you think about it, 当耶稣行走在地上 when Jesus was walking on earth 的时候，其实 a lot of times, if you read the New Testament, a lot of times he's eating with the sinners. He's eating. I mean, I don't know if he's feasting, but he's eating, definitely. And, you know, 我们都会觉得说, oh, Jesus was doing miracles. Yes, he definitely is, but he was eating a lot. 五饼二鱼, how did that come from? Eating, right? A lot of it is eating. So, 我们 start from Old Testament 到 New Testament, 甚至到现在，我们每个月的 communion, what is that? The blood, the eating symbolize the blood and the body of Jesus. And 当然我们现代人会把它 make it so small, tiny. But back then it's like a huge 饼, okay? 像那个中东人那种大的饼，然后 it was a literal cup. And it's done with a meal. Like if we have to do the biblical traditional way, it's done with a meal, and it's 一个大饼. It's not just like our tiny cup. It was more like feasting, dining than what we have right now. 所以其实 throughout the Bible entirety, God likes to be with his people, just to celebrate, just to enjoy. And when we eat, what does that mean then? When we eat before the Lord your God, other than he likes to celebrate, what does it mean? 你如果仔细看 Exodus 的，就是我刚刚跟你讲 Exodus 24的，到现在这个的，然后到我们的 Lord's Supper 就是主圣餐的时候，其实他们都有 common theme run throughout. 第一个 theme 是 we remember the covenant with God. We acknowledge the covenant, and we say we remember it. Exodus 24的时候，他们为什么 celebrate? 因为 after 10 commandments, after the signing of covenant, they celebrate. So they remember, they acknowledge. 就很像庆功一样 ，Yeah, we did it. And then 我们去庆功。And then 为什么我们新约的时候要吃 the cup, the communion? 他说什么 Whenever we drink it, we remember, right? We remember. So remember his covenant. That's first thing. And the second one is we accept his invitation to celebrate, to be with him simply. 就很像那种爸爸打电话说，哎，女儿啊，你好久没回家吃饭了。Do you want to come home and eat? I said, sure, I'll come back. You accept the invitation, say, I want to be with you too. You want to be with me? I want to be with you too. So what does it mean to eat before the Lord your God? It just means I want to remember the covenant with God. And it means I want to accept the celebration with him. I want to accept the invitation. I want to be with him too. So then that extends to how is it different from 那种 temple 在 Buddhism or Taoism, 你要 offer food to whatever idol that is. When you offer the food to idol, there's no covenant involved. There's no relationship involved. It's not because the idol want to spend time with you, invited you to the banquet, and you're like, all right, let's go. And a lot of times, I don't know if it's true, but a lot of times what I noticed the pattern is 很多人是还愿或是要许愿. It's like 你要找平安 like what I remember vividly is 台湾在7、8月的时候什么鬼门开，你要拜好兄弟 why? Because you want peace. You have ulterior motive. Or 你要还愿 because whatever God answer whatever prayer that you have, so you give them food. So it almost seems like an exchange or a plead or ulterior motive is involved. Whereas when God invited his people to celebrate, there was no motive. There was no propaganda. There's no ulterior motive. It was simply, I want to be with you. It was just as simple as your dad calls you, say, do you want to come back for a meal? I haven't seen you for a while. It was just like that. So that's how it's different. And of course, 你们讲的 it's also right too. I just didn't think of all that aspect, but that is also true. Yeah. Okay. 那verse 23它还有下半段嘛，我只讲到说 before the Lord your God. 那23它的结尾是什么？ That you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. 好使你可以学习常常敬畏耶和华你的神。所以我们要记得一件事哦， It's not the eating that causes us to fear God. It's not the eating. 你知道，因为我觉得我们有时候身为华人 Asian churches，我们会 capture the wrong concept，我们会觉得那教会一定有食物。So we feast a lot as Asian church. We have different potluck, different event, barbecue event, whatnot. Just, because we like to feast, and it's almost biblical too, because God likes to feast. But it's not the act of feasting that teach His people to fear Yahweh, but it's the manner of how they eat. Eating before Yahweh should and would naturally bring a good attitude. That's reverence. That's an awe. Just think about it. If I'm eating before whatever president that is, doesn't matter if I voted for the president or not. The fact that is he is the president or she is the president. When you eat before a president or emperor, you have that form of courtesy. You have that natural form of reverence. So 他是在讲一个 heart posture，他希望说 whenever，Moses 希望说 whenever 我们来到神面前 feast 的时候，other than enjoying the presence，also 我们可以 reverence that he is the Lord，Lord 大写 ，and it means everything belongs to him. Yahweh, the word Yahweh actually means he is, he was, he will always be， 自在永在的全能神。And when I'm eating with the creator of the world who is not bounded by time, who is infinite, I need to have a healthy dose of fear. A lot of times, 我们上一次 Bible study 有讲到 a lot of times 我们觉得 fear is a negative thing. But when we don't have any fear, that's actually a scary thing. We need to have a healthy dose of fear. 你不会跟小孩说 "Oh, don't fear anything." 那这样他什么危险事情都敢做 That's actually bad. Like healthy dose of fear makes us healthy and safe, right? 你看到高的地方危险地方 you shouldn't approach because that's a healthy dose of fear. But you shouldn't be walking around fearful. That's unhealthy. That makes you unhealthy. 所以 that's why 他会说我们常常跟上帝 feast. 如果我们的 attitude is right, 我们 remember 他 covenant, we want to be with him, 我们应该会有一个 healthy dose of fear. That we remember everything belongs to God. Okay, so far so good. Any questions so far? Now we move on, okay? Now verse 24 to 25. Moses 就讲到说 if the way is too long for you, meaning 他如果可能住很远的话 that you are not able to carry the tithe, because remember the tithe could be animals, could be plants, and must be heavy because it's a year worth. Then you shall turn it into money, bind up the money in your hand, go to the place that the Lord your God chooses. 如果那路离你太远，那路又太长，使你不能带公物到那里，你可以换成银子，把银子拿在手里，到耶和华你选择的地方去。所以 Moses, he recognized there is logistical difficulties of the requirement, especially 如果他们进入迦南地 Promised Land 的时候 people may live further away. Because right now 他们是 nomads, they move around a lot. But once they enter Promised Land, they will become a nation. And when they become a nation, they have permanent residence. And it may be difficult to come to the sanctuary, the temple of worship. So that's why he provided this liberal, practical solution. But I want to ask then, what does this passage tells us about our attitude of tithing? 这个 passage 很 simple, 24, 25很 simple, but it actually highlights a very important attitude for our tithing. And because of time, 我就不让你 share, but that's a question that you have to ask your members and let them think about it. What does it teach us about tithing the attitude? 我们看verse 25 Moses broke down details of how to tithe, right? Like how to, 他说什么？你要 turn it into money, bind out the money in your hand. I mean, yeah, of course. 难道是 in my feet 吗？ Like, and then you have to go. Like, 他讲的好细哦。He could have just said, guys. I mean, 他是圣经，他可能不会这样讲。他说 Israelites, the people of God, convert all your produce into money and bring it into the house of God. It could have just said that. Very simple, very easy. 可是为什么他要 go into extensively listed out all the simple steps about binding the money, put it in your hand, bring it into the place that Lord your God chooses. 他刚刚前面几节不才讲了吗？22、23节不才讲了吗？ Why is he saying it again? I think it shows the level of care we should give in handling our tithe. This is the level of care, the attention to details. Of course, God is very understanding that He knows there are difficulties, challenges involved with His command. So He is not fixated on a specific method. Like 他没有一定要你要什么 method，你可以 convert the money，你可以 convert it back again. Like he's not like fixation. So you must drag your cow however far it is. Like he's not crazy like that. He's understanding. He's very liberal. He gave you a practical solution. But here's the but. God does care about the level of attention and care we give to our tithe, because these details reveal our heart's attitude. 我们怎么给，其实代表了我们在心里在想什么。那些细节 actually reveals our true intention. Right now, 我们很多 different method to tithe, right? 你知道有网络奉献，你可以写 check，你可以写 cash. There are multiple ways. 你甚至可以 donate stocks. If you're richer, 你可以 donate entire house. It's fine. But it's not about the methods of tithing. It's about how we handle our tithe. And how we handle it must be intentional and careful. Look at verse 25. It's actually intentional and careful. You must bind the cash, put it in your hand, go there to the your God chooses. It's intentional, it's careful. And I remember 我以前 seminary professor shared his story with me. 他有讲到 tithing 的时候，他就 share his story with me. 他就说 even though right now online payment is very easy and simple, convenient. 可是他说他习惯 tithing 的时候，他都要去 ATM draw out cash， 然后 the night before of service， 他会把那个 cash 整整齐齐放在 envelope 里面，然后 seal the envelope， 然后 put it 在他的那个 key 的那个 basket 里面，然后明天他再pick up the envelope， 然后 carefully slide it into the offering box. And it's not because he's not smart, cannot use electronic payment. It's because he said that he wants to prepare his heart to give to God. And that's what God deserves. It's not how much he gives, it's the level of attention that he gives to the way God deserves. 那当然 I'm not saying that every one of us should stop online payment, because I still use electronic payment too. But I'm saying that 有时候 because electronic payment is so convenient, 我们就很随便给，很像在刷卡买东西一样很随便。But we're not shopping. We're giving what God deserves. In fact, he deserves even more. We're just giving a little bit of what he gave us. So I want to invite us to think about how we give matters just as much as what we give. Yes, 立位记 Leviticus 有告诉你说你要给 perfect, give your best. I get it. Those are good. But how do we give? 是我们随便就把钱撒给上帝吗？ You know, like the attitude of giving. Is it with reverence? Is it with intention? Is it with care? Is it planned? Or it just happened to be 我今天心情好就给你吧，又不施舍。Right? We're not giving to a homeless. We're giving to the creator of the universe. So we must think about how we give. I think that's what verse 24, 25 tells us, that God is understanding. He gets it. There's challenges. So he allows for exceptions in different ways. But he also desires we care. Right? Okay, now 我们 verse 26. Verse 26. 他说 and spend the money for whatever you desire. 他就 list up, and you shall eat there before the Lord your God and rejoice, you and your household. 你可以用银子随意的买，你心想要都可以买。在那里，你和你的家人都要在耶和华你的神面前吃喝欢乐。所以在这里 it emphasizes again, it's a joyful meal, a fellowship in the presence of God. Just like what I said, it's a celebration, it's an invitation to be with someone. 那 it's interesting because remember Moses 25节才说 if you live too far away, this is what you can do. But the point is, doesn't matter how far you live, you still have to come. He can make it easier for you, but he's not gonna say you. If you live too far away, then don't come. If you live too far away, you can convert it into money and convert back, but you still gotta come. 那所以我觉得说，其实 it shows us that God does value that we celebrate, we enjoy His presence with the member of faith. 那当然不要用这一节就说，那我只要 annually 来教会就好，我只要 annually 来参加小组就好。That's not justification for that because in fact Israelites 他们天天都要神嘛，然后还有 Passover 很多 annual activity. This is one of them. But it shows that how much God desires that we come together as a household of God and celebrate with Him. He actually cares. That's why 还要再讲一次。那 before 我们 dive into verse 27, 29, 27 to 29, 我们已经读过了刚刚 about tithe, another type of tithing. 那我想问大家一个问题哦 question number 3. So for a typical Israelite, 一个 job would most likely involve agriculture or herding. Like 要不然就是牧羊，要不然就是畜牧业或是农业。So their blessing from God will be their harvest. Now, the question then is, what would the blessing of God look like for a non-typical Israelite, such as Levites, 利未人, who cannot own their own land, or widows, 女人不能工作? Then what does the blessing of God look like then? What would the blessing of God 神的祝福在这些人身上会长什么样子？在一个可以工作的人身上，神的祝福就长得像丰衣足食。那如果是一个 widow 不能工作，在那个年代 widow 是不能工作，或是你是一个 Levite， 你不能拥有遗产，不能 inheritance，then what does the blessing of God look like then? So if we read verse 27 to 29, it's actually a welfare system that is not part of political bureaucracy. For right now, welfare, it means bureaucracy, social workers. I mean, I'm not saying those are bad. Food stamps, those are part of bureaucracy, right? Medicare, Medical, whatever. Those are part of the bureaucracy. That's administration. That's government extending their care to us. But what God has envisioned, at least Moses tells us, that the welfare system is dependent on the charity of all citizens. The charity of all citizens, the compassion of every single resident in that town is the welfare system. I mean, right now it probably wouldn't work. 因为你说如果 Irvine 的人要养 Irvine 的 homeless, Irvine 的 widow, Irvine 的 whatever, probably it wouldn't work because there were probably very little people would do it. But what God envisioned is that there is not a bureaucracy, a government just redistributing everything, but rather it's us, every single resident of that place. And based on the immediate context of verse 27, remember verse 25 is about, or verse 23 to 25 is about going to a temple for the annual celebration, right? Now verse 27 马上 shifted to here. 所以我们可以 safely assume that it also means when these people are going up to a feast, the annual feast, so they have to bring the Levites in their town to go with them. Because remember, 如果你 travel far, what happens? You need food. You need money for living. You need tent. You need camping. You need camel. You have a lot of lodging to figure out. Just like now, if I have to travel to Boston, let's say, then I will have to figure out airfare, hotel, da 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 da. And if you're not rich enough, sorry, that's not for you because you can't afford it. So based on the immediate context, we can safely assume that 这些人 when they go to pilgrimage, the annual feast, 他们需要 bring on their Levites and then share their food, take care of them, and during the journey. And it's not a tall ask anyway, because if they're going to that annual feast, that means they have harvest, right? They have a year worth of harvest. So just adding a few mouths shouldn't be too hard. But here's the thing though. How about the rest of the year? 他不可能那一年就吃那一次的 feast 吧 How about the rest of the year? There is like another 11 months left. So this is where verse 28, 29 comes into play. This is called, the official term is the third year tithe. 就是3年要再给另外一个 tithe. So 一年大概 3.33%. Okay. So it's different from all the other tithe. All the other tithe, you have to bring it to a centralized place. Basically, 就是 the Jerusalem. 然后呢，你要 bring it to the temple, the tabernacle, whatever. 然后你要 kill the animals there and stuff. But the third year tithe is different. You don't bring it in to a central place. You bring it to your town. 你把它带给你的 townhouse, not the central place, but the townhouse. And because 这些人 third year 的时候，这些人 Levites, not just Levites, marginalized folks, like economically marginalized folks, like fatherless, widows, 这些人都包括在内。这些人他们可以去这个 town 的中心拿这些食物来吃。This is the welfare. And these people are all invited to receive food and take home and eat until they're satisfied. 所以 Moses before 他们 even 进这个 promised land, 他们是 nomadic, 就是一群游牧民族的时候，他已经 anticipate 说 when you become a nation, when you settle down, 这个 society 一定会有一些 stratification, 就是一定会有一些阶级制，多少都会有嘛，就是有一些 upper class, middle class, lower class, it's just natural. 可是 if all the people in community who has a land, who is able to produce something, we all are compassionate enough, then these people will be cared for. And the last part of the verse 29, 他说什么？他说 the last part of verse 29, it says that they will come and eat and be filled, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands that you do. 好叫耶和华你的神在你手所做的一切事上赐福给你。所以他我们可以甚至 suggest 说 when we demonstrate compassion to the poor, it's actually a precondition to being blessed. Remember I said the love of God is unconditional, but the blessings of God may not be conditional. It could be conditional, it could be the blessings of God depends on what kind of blessings. So then we have to think about this. It's very different from what we have today. Because right now, 我们会觉得 the poor is government's business. The seniors are government's business. The handicap, the disability, it's government's business. And if anything went wrong with them, it's institutional issue. Or they're too lazy to work. We have all this judgmental or analyst coming out of us. But here, God said what? It's the compassion that drives us. Then we have to ask, the number 4 sharing question is, what does a biblical prosperity look like? 圣经中的富足是长什么样子？ Prosperity. You know, the word prosperity, 我们讲 prosperity gospel. But think about it. What is a true biblical prosperity? Based on this passage, I would say that biblical 因为它里面已经讲了，他说 you will be blessed with the hand of your work, right? 就是好像就是 prosperity. That's what it means essentially, and that's what prosperity gospel like to quote. And I think the biblical prosperity, 一个圣经中的富足是 I have enough to be independent, to be self-sufficient, to feed my family, and I also have extra to bless others. And that's a biblical prosperity. I don't think the Bible is asking us to not work and to wait for the money to rain down. No, these people are called to work. That's why they have harvest. That's why they have produce, right? But I need to have not just for myself. I need to have extra so I can bless the people in my community. That's a biblical prosperity. 所以你如果跟我说我们要当个富有的人 I would say yes, but not in a way of selfish way that I can accumulate wealth for my next generation. Because in the Asian prosperity, it looks like this. I have more than enough to save up for my next generation. I've saved up enough money to give it to my parents, to 孝敬他们, to honor them. And then 最好是上下都可以给。然后最好你还可以存几个房子，然后给几代，然后 live very comfortably. But biblical prosperity is actually I have enough to feed my family and then to share with others outside of my family. And the last, very, very last question, it's a conclusion actually. And it's a challenging question for all of us, is what is the foundation then to all the commands for tithing? Whether it's a 10% tithe or a 30-year tithe. Or why should we give at all as instructed? Because after all, it's my hard-earned money, right? 这些 farmer, 这些牧羊的人, hey, it's their hard-earned money. They have to put in effort. 对啊，天要降雨，可是他们也是 work hard. 那为什么还要照着上帝说这些？我不只给上帝，给上帝就算了，我还要给那个隔壁那个阿猫阿狗不知道在干嘛的。我这么辛苦，然后他不工作，我还要给他钱。Why do I have to do that? And in fact, 如果你把 Old Testament 全部读一读的话 the total amount you have to give, I remember correctly, is like 33% or something, 33.33% or something. It's a ridiculous amount. It's almost like 1/3 of your income you have to give it away. And then if it's just to God, that's fine. But it's to various things like charities, your neighbor, people who are in need. So what is the foundation? What is the basis to give them? Okay, let me ask a question. 在这个 passage 里面，除了 tithing 是很常 repeated words，还有什么 you, he 那些我们不要管，那 pronouns, let's ignore pronouns. What's the most commonly repeated phrase here? Look at the passage about tithing. What's the most commonly repeated phrase here? Or what phrase stands out to you? Anyone have a guess? Let me share the screen with you. It is the Lord your God. The Lord your God, the Lord your God, repeated 7 times throughout. Ignore the pronouns, those don't count, but the phrase. Other than tithe itself, the first thing is definitely tithe. It talks about it a lot, repeatedly. But the second thing is the Lord your God. And this is the reason why, the foundation of why we must give, is because of that phrase, the Lord your God. It's not a coincidence that it repeated tithe the most because that's a topic, and the Lord your God 7 times. The Lord your God, think about it, what it means. The Lord, L-O-R-D, capital letters, means Yahweh. It means he's the owner of the entire universe. And he is not just Yahweh, but he is our God. That means he's my master. He is my master. So the foundation to give is not because the church is poor, he needs my money, or the widow, 好可怜，我给他钱. I mean, those are not bad reasons to give, but the most important reason is these 2 things. I acknowledge who God is, and I agree to be in this covenant relationship with him, and that's why we tithe. I acknowledge who God is, means he sees, he knows everything. Like, it's not just a intellect knowledge, it's my heart knowledge that I believe. He knows I give even when I'm struggling. That he knows I'm giving with what kind of attitude. Doesn't matter the amount I've given. Maybe I just like the widow in the New Testament, I only give 1 coin. But he sees the heart of my intentionality to give, my carefulness to give. So he knows because he is the Lord, L-O-R-D, capital letters. And he's our God, he's my God. So he's not just any other God. but he's my God. And that means I'm in this marriage, quote unquote, with him. 当你在一个 covenant relationship, 在一个 marriage 里面, so that means you agree to the terms. That means if you think this is important, I will see this as important. And so the foundation of our tithing, the true foundation should be I acknowledge who he is. And I agree that we're in this covenant relationship. We're in this together. God, you want to care for the world? Let me be your hand and feet. God, you want me to care for a neighbor? Let me do that. God, this church is your house of worship. Let me give it to the house of worship because I want to maintain it. I want to be a part of it. So this is the reason why we give. That's the most important reason why. 其他的东西, yeah, it makes sense, but it's not the most important reason. The Lord your God, that's the most important reason. And that's it for tonight. Any thoughts or questions or anything to add on?